Welcome to the Fearless Speakers Podcast. I'm Richard Jones, and my guest this month is Sonay Erten. Hello and welcome to the Fearless Speakers Podcast. I'm Richard Jones, a public speaking coach and co-leader of TEDx Beckenham. Every month, I'm chatting to speakers and organisers from the TEDx world and beyond to give you insights into how you can create deeper connections and spark action by sharing your ideas from the stage. In this first episode, I'm delighted to speak to Sonay Erten, one of our first speakers at TEDx Beckenham. Sonay is a lawyer and a coach who, after her own late diagnoses of ADHD and autism, now supports other late diagnosed adults and advocates for neuro inclusion at work and beyond. She also co-hosts the Divergently Married podcast. Welcome, Sonay.
Thank you. Lovely introduction.
Thank you. And first of all, I really want to thank you for being my first ever guest on this podcast.
Yeah.
It will get me off to a running start. I've hinted a little bit there about what you do, and you're very much like me. I think very much a does loads of stuff person. So
Yeah.
maybe do you want to expand a little bit more on that around what you do professionally and anything else you want to tell our beautiful listeners out there?
Yeah. I mean, you've basically covered pretty much everything I do. So I started off life as a lawyer, solicitor advocate, and it was really my diagnoses of ADHD and autism that came later on in life at the age of 32 that made me really branch out into this portfolio career, as you put it. So I still am a lawyer on a self-employed basis. I work in dispute resolution, so very much trying to resolve any kind of fights people are having in the courts. But I've also, in recent years, developed my neurodiversity practice. So coaching late diagnosed neurodivergence, primarily ADHDers. But I also coach autistic people, dyslexic people, those generally suffering with anxiety as well. And it's just to get them more empowered, build their confidence and thrive, not just in the workplace, but also in life as a whole. You mentioned I co-host Divergently Married podcast with my husband, James, which we've actually been doing for 2 years now, which
Yeah.
feels quite crazy how
Well,
that's passed by.
yeah. Yeah, I remember when you told us about it at the when we were just actually before you were about to go on stage at the
Yes, yeah.
TEDx, and then I avidly tuned in from that point on.
I think we'd had probably about 2 or 3 episodes at
Yes.
that point. It was quite early back then. We've now been doing it for 2 years, which is still going strong, I think. I just generally deliver talks on neurodiversity and mental health as well. Again, it comes from my own sort of diagnoses and wanting to spread the word out there.
Yeah. And what I really love about the podcast is it's very relatable. I mean, it certainly helped me to think about my own potential neurodivergence.
Mm.
And in particular, there was one very early on in the series around the process of getting a diagnosis, which put me off the whole process, but it was a good thing
Sorry.
to listen to. No, I mean, it's kind of like, it's really useful information.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's maybe go back to that period then. But yeah, maybe we'll kind of cast our minds back to sort of the summer of 2023, which is when Ron Kay and I were first dipping our toes into the water of the TEDx and
Yeah.
setting it all up. And we put a call out for speakers. I mean, what was it about that you know made you? What did you want to apply? Really, what was your thinking?
But I guess I'd say partly the answer is contained in my talk, the fact that I
Mm.
love to talk, which is one of the central themes of my TEDx talk. But I've been involved in delivering talks and public speaking for probably, I'd say, about 20 years, since university. Um, so that was sort of my main motivation, that sort of interest in delivering talks, and I've more recently been doing it around neurodiversity in order to create awareness, but also show others that they're not alone in the struggles that they go through.
Mm.
So when I saw your call out for speakers, and especially it being in the local area as well, so somewhere that I'm invested in terms of being invested in the community, then I thought, well, this is an opportunity for me to actually spread that message that I've been trying to spread about being neurodivergent and late diagnosis and what I feel is needed, uh, and just bring it to more people. But I didn't expect the reaction that I did get. I think I had a look just before we went live, and there's been 24,000 views on the YouTube recording of the talk,
Yeah,
which, yeah.
congratulations on that. I mean, it's one of our at the higher end of our speakers in terms of views.
Mm,
And actually, what I really love about it is whenever I go in and have a look, and I see, well, first of all, I see the number of views, and then I read the comments, and
mm,
that always makes me emotional, and I'm feeling it now because I've seen so many comments saying thank you for,
yeah.
explaining my experience or for helping me to feel less alone, or I don't know if there's any comments in particular that really have struck you, but that reminds me about how TEDx is such a great platform for
Mm,
getting those ideas out there to places that you would not even have expected to.
yeah. Yeah,
Mm,
exactly that. My motivation was to actually get the talk out to maybe people who don't know about neurodiversity. I remember actually on the night chatting to some of the speakers and having this real fear that some people would see the talk and just think, oh, another one, ADHD is a fashion trend, that kind of thing. That's what I was really thinking because of that intention to get it in front of people that don't really know about neurodiversity. But actually to see those comments of people saying, "Thank you so much.
mm.
I don't feel alone. I really resonate with this." I think that has more of an impact for me than actually getting the message to sort of other people that might not have considered it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, well, we'll put a link to the talk in the show notes, but also I don't think we need to worry about giving spoilers here. But one of the other things I really like about it is the talk is there's a lot of practical stuff in there about
Mm,
things that businesses can do to provide a more, I guess, hospitable environment for neurodivergent people,
mm,
and really very simple ideas that actually I'd never thought about because I guess I'd never really. I mean, I identify with some of the traits, but for example, the noise issue, although I kind
yeah.
of relate to that a little bit, but yeah, the idea of having a quiet hour, for example, at restaurants and
Mm,
stores, etc.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's genuinely what I believe is really that systemic change is needed. And if it happens in our schools, in our businesses, in our workplaces, society as a whole, this sort of just being able to support neurodivergent people better. So obviously my talk was more on ADHD and autism because that's what I've got lived experience and what I'm also trained in as a coach. Generally neurodivergence, if we actually support different brains, it's not just good for neurodivergent people themselves, but it's good for society as a whole.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I know there's a lot of interesting terminology because obviously I follow a lot of this now on LinkedIn and other places. The kind of a neuro spicy and the
Yes.
superpower, and in some ways I find it a little bit patronizing, but there is
Yeah.
something in that around, harnessing the power of the neurodivergent mind as opposed to
Mm.
seeing it as a handicap.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm definitely not on the side of superpower and all of that. I don't use that terminology. I do a lot of the time use sort of wording like disabled because, I do believe because of the way society is set up
Mm,
that a lot of the time neurodivergent people will feel disabled because there's just things that you can't do. I think even if we do get to a place where neurodivergent people are properly supported. Sometimes just life as, for example, life as an ADHD is difficult. We do have executive functioning challenges and nothing will change that. But I think if we did get to a place where people were properly supported, then it wouldn't be as much of a disability anymore. We could just support everyone in the way they need to be supported. I think it would be great.
yeah, no, I love that, and I think that's also a more general message of, everyone's different, right, and everyone has different
Mm,
needs, and to sort of a
mm,
one size fits all for people is not always helpful.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
So, shall we talk a little bit then about the process of sort of preparing for the talk and then giving the
Mm,
talk? Because I'm sure a lot
yes.
of our listeners out there well, a lot of them, I imagine, will be thinking about giving a TEDx talk and then using this as a way of getting a bit of an insight. At least this is what I'm hoping from the podcast. Yeah, I mean, it's, I guess, quite an open question. I mean, what were the sort of
Mm,
highlights for you, maybe the highs and lows around the process? And
mm,
yeah, what really stood
yeah.
out for you?
Um, I'm going to be a bit cringy here, and
That's
actually,
okay.
um,
Cringe is
your
allowed.
your support was really helpful. There was a particular time, I'm not going to necessarily mention any
Yeah,
names, but where I
that's fair.
got some advice that wasn't very good advice from someone else, obviously not you, about how to do my TEDx talk, and it was advice that wouldn't have been authentic to me, and it would have changed the talk to basically be delivered by someone who wasn't me. Um, and I remember sort of feeling quite upset in that moment. And it was you and a fellow speaker who actually said to me, "No, you stay true to yourself. I actually quite like what you did here and stick with that." So I did, because I know I was battling with imposter syndrome a lot. Um, in the run up, and I would compare myself to the other speakers and their life experience and think, oh, I'm not good enough. And so that moment, having that kind of validation from you and from my fellow speaker as well, to just do things in a way that works for me, was, yeah, I think that was definitely a big high, as well as delivering the talk,
Yeah.
obviously. That was the biggest.
Well, we'll pick up on that in a minute, but I think that's
Yeah.
really important because, you know, a lot of times I find coaches and other people wanting to give feedback or to suggest that people should speak in a certain way that actually is, how should I put it? Is more in tune with their needs rather than the speaker's needs. And we do have to listen to our audience, but equally, if that forces us to behave in a certain way that isn't true to us, then I think that's detrimental. So I'm really
Mm.
glad that got through, that you were able
Yeah.
to stick to your guns.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, in terms of any other kind of highs and lows, I think, well, it was actually quite a sort of difficult time for me personally as well. I lost my granddad at the time, and so I had the impact of, I'd kind of left things sort of almost to last minute anyway in terms of preparing for a talk, which is very normal for me, motivated by a deadline. But then I had that on top as well, so I was very much having to sort of work to quite a short deadline and getting everything prepared, um, and rehearsing the talk and also memorizing the talk. But I think that helped me in the end, which, I mean, deadlines always help me anyway. That's why I initially decided to work in dispute resolution, because court
Yes.
deadlines motivate me. Um, but yeah, so I just remember that whole time, sort of the week before the actual delivering of the TEDx talk, me memorizing it, and it worked in the end because I was able to remember the whole talk, which I was, yeah, really shocked by.
I must admit that is I mean, now we've run 2, and obviously I've coached other people, who've been through a
Mm,
similar process, and that it is that week, isn't I think that is
mm,
very common, experience for people of it being really quite intense, of a week to
yeah,
go and make or break.
yeah.
But without fault, I mean, yourself and everyone else that we've taken through that process has really pulled it out of the bag in that final
Mm,
week, so
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I think it just sort of it shows, doesn't it, that whilst you might think, "Oh, I should have had this prepared from a long time ago," and this is something I coach people on as well, is just actually, well, you did it in the end. So
Yeah.
clearly you can do it, and not to put that pressure on yourself that you can't do it.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And, so what was the experience like, walking on stage, being on stage, and maybe how does that compare with other speaking experiences that you've had?
Um, yeah, I mean, I always prefer in-person events, to sort of doing them on Zoom or Teams or whatever, because there's something about that thrill when you stand on the stage. I think with TEDx in particular, because it's almost iconic, isn't it? That red dot and, it being dark as well and the spotlights on you. And I think that was the first time I actually used a mic as well. So I was
Wow.
quite anxious about that. Well, use a mic that was sort of attached to me rather than using a mic
Yeah.
that you hold. So, I mean, the way my brain works, I always have the weirdest anxieties. So I had, the anxieties that it might stop working or, fall on the floor or I'll press it or something like
Yeah.
that.
All right to know.
Um, so I would have had all of that, but I just remember sort of standing on that red dot and then that was it. All it was just meaning to deliver my talk in the way that I'd prepared. And I remember sort of getting a few laughs as well in the bits where I was using humor, and that meant a lot that people were actually responding to the message and actually listening as well. You could tell people were
It's
engaged
always
with the
helpful.
talk and yeah, and not falling asleep. So yeah, and then it just yeah, it was over just in a flash and I was stepping off on stage and yeah, that sort of adrenaline high afterwards. Yeah. I can't really describe it. It was a really special night. And then also the feedback I got afterwards. So I think we went to a break straight after my talk, or maybe one talk after.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
you're definitely the first half, I remember. Yeah.
yeah, and people just coming up to me, and even at the end of the event as well, just so many people that I didn't even know coming up to me and saying, "Thank you so much for this talk. It was really interesting." And I guess that was the start of all of those positive comments I've had on the talk, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's always great to get that instant feedback, right? 'Cause then
Mm,
but I think also, like, you feed off the energy of the audience, of you kinda get a
yeah,
sense of whether people are taking it in.
yeah.
And definitely, I received a lot of great feedback from, uh, various people in the local community about your talks.
Wow.
Yes, I won't go into names equally, but yes, people that we probably both know.
Yeah.
That's great. So in terms of, what that's meant for you, um, in the last couple of years, I guess,
Hmm.
I know that maybe you haven't done lots and lots of speaking since then, but it sounds like it's been a bit of a springboard in terms of, um, your own focus on neurodivergence, etc. So yeah, maybe tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, well, the actual YouTube recording is in my email signature,
Mhm.
so
Ah,
it goes
that's a
out
very
to
good point.
yeah,
Good
to
tip.
anyone that I contact. So it's usually in my sort of coaching business because my legal work is separate. But I have had people saying, "Oh yeah, we've just watched your TEDx talk and it's really good." I get a bit embarrassed when I have my coaching clients sort of raise it in session and say, "I just saw your TEDx talk." Um, but I think also it's been good in that sense. It's sort of supplemented the work that I do as a coach as well because what I try and sort of get across, I suppose, is not just that systemic change is needed, but also empowering neurodivergence as well and building their confidence. That's very much what I do as a coach. And so I guess having people watch that TEDx talk as well just shows, well, look, I've been through struggles and look where what I'm able to do now. I've been able to deliver a TEDx talk and all the work that I do as well. So I think it has that sort of dual purpose of is trying to get that message out to people that maybe haven't thought about it, but also neurodivergence themselves to see what you can do when you work with your brain. But yeah, I think the main thing for me is just sort of people coming up to me and saying, "I've seen this talk." I remember quite early on, someone sort of stopped me when I was sat on the train and said, "Oh, I saw you last week at that TEDx event." So did you? I felt like a bit of a celebrity on that one. But yeah, it's just the response that I've had has been overwhelming, and it sort of propelled me to carry on with what I do.
Yeah, I guess that's really important, isn't it? I mean, I think for anybody, motivation is important, but particularly, again, like I'd identify very much with an ADHD trait of like I need to feel a bit of a buzz, a bit of
Mm,
excitement. Like I can easily get bored with things. So to
mm,
have that kind of positive reinforcement to sort of go, oh,
yeah,
actually, this is making a difference. There is a point to doing this.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I guess also another bit about that validation as well is because I was so authentically me in delivering that TEDx talk and also how I prepared for it and everything, which I might not have done in previous talks that I've
Mm,
delivered. And so to see people actually accepting that, I wasn't standing still whilst I was delivering the talk. And, I had silly images on the PowerPoint
yeah.
and I used a lot of humor. And to see that all of that was accepted by people as well, just to sort of given me that confidence to be more myself moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's so important. You talk a lot about masking in the talk, and
Mm,
and I think that's uh that's an example of that sort of well, I assume level of unmasking. It's like no, I'm just going
yes.
to be me and
Yeah.
take it or leave it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember watching the recording for the first time and thinking, "Why did I not stand still? What am I doing?" But, no one else cares, do they? So, yeah, I'll carry on sort of not standing still, I suppose.
No, exactly. That's great. So, just in terms of, I guess key things, messages that you would give to someone who's thinking about doing a TEDx talk or any kind of key learnings, what would you sort of share? What would be your sort of key takeaways to tell them?
I think the main one, or the first one anyway, would be you need to have a message that you're genuinely passionate about. So
Mm,
I've come across people who've said, "Oh, I really want to do a TEDx talk. Oh, that's so great that you did a TEDx talk." And it's like, but do you want to do it just to do a talk, or is there a message that you have to deliver? I mean, I live and breathe the message I wanted to deliver. Even in the home, I'm always talking about neurodiversity. That's why we've got the podcast because
exactly.
my husband and I are always chatting about
This will
neurodiversity.
record it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I think it really worked for me because I already had that message that I was delivering on a smaller basis that I wanted more people to hear, essentially. So I think that's the first step. If you have that, then that's a really good start to apply to deliver a TEDx talk. Um, when it comes to the actual process itself, again, I'd say be true to yourself, which is what I was talking about earlier. So the fact that, I got a piece of advice that I thought that's not me, and in the end ignored it and it worked. And also just the way I prepared for it as well. So I realized whilst I was trying to rehearse the talk, memorize the talk, that actually I have a visual brain and there's no point me trying to memorize this talk just by words on a page. So I actually had pictures for each sentence of my TEDx, and I sort of created myself a little PowerPoint of these pictures, and
Oh,
that
yeah.
helped me memorize it. So again, it's sort of thinking about your brain. I guess that's more for people who are neurodivergent, but don't try and do it like someone else would. Think about what works for you. Um, and I guess finally, just sort of go for it. Like I mentioned earlier, I really suffered with imposter syndrome
Mm.
when we were sort of going through the process and thought I wasn't good enough. And clearly I am, judging by how many people have watched it and all the feedback. So, don't ever think that, oh, I can't do it. I can't deliver a TEDx talk. If you've got that message that you're genuinely passionate about, then go for it.
Yeah, I know, and I think you're echoing a lot of what I've heard from some others of our speakers who've expressed that imposter syndrome. Even after they've been chosen to talk, there's that sense of, why am I here? Can I really match up to these other people?
Yeah,
Am I going to be able to pull it off? And
yeah,
yeah, uh, without fail, all of them have. So
yeah, yeah,
mm,
exactly.
yeah, I mean, it's still a big deal. Yeah, I'd say that to anyone out there that, you can't just get up there and wing it. Well, maybe somebody who's really, really
Oh, I
experienced
don't
wing
know.
it, but even then I wouldn't recommend it.
No.
So it does take a lot of
Yeah.
work, but the work is well worth putting in.
Yeah. And that's the thing, even though what I spoke about is things that I talk about all day, every day, and I still put a lot of hours preparing for it. I mean, so much so that I remember that little section with about the sound, the noise sensitivity. My husband at the end of it was like, "I don't want to hear that sound again." Because I'd be in the living room whilst he's working in the office and just going through it all day, and he was just sick of it. So, yeah, that's how much effort it does take. No matter, how much you know your subject, you still need to put that preparation in. Like I say, if you've got a message to deliver that you're passionate about, then just go for it. And the support that obviously you all gave me in delivering it as well, the team was brilliant. So yeah, I don't think people should really stop themselves from going for it. It's just go and do it.
Great. Well, that's a great message to end on. Thanks so much, Sonay, again. Really appreciate you
No
partnering
worries.
with me on the first episode. And yeah, thank you everyone out there for listening. I'll be doing this once a month. Um, Stay tuned for the next episode, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.